Good afternoon. My name is Kirk Haynes. I am the Senior Vice President of Global Business Development. I've met some of you I haven't. I tend to go from Palantir office to Palantir office and do presentations and other work that is duties as assigned. First of all, I appreciate you coming. I know it's busy. Sign up. It's a week in advance. You're going to have plenty of time, and this morning there's 8 things on your calendar. But I appreciate you making the time. It'll be my job today to make it worth it. I see several faces out there that I do know that are customers and we've talked to before at Palantir. I also see some faces that I don't know. So what I'd like to do is a very short overview of Palantir Solutions, who we are, and then I want to get straight into the reserves piece. I plan to go for about 30 minutes. Feel free to eat and drink. No throwing things. And then we'll end up with some Q&A, and after the Q&A, we'll do some more networking. You can leave any time. So let's get started. Who is Palantir Solutions? We are a global consultancy and software firm. We are the leading provider of integrated dynamic planning solutions, and we're going to talk about that a lot today. We have 8 offices around the world with over 200 employees because we like to be close to our customers, like these. What does Palantir provide? We provide a combination of software and services, and what our end deliverable really is solutions. When we take the software and combine it with the services, we talk to all of our customers about solutions. And the reason is between our business consulting, strategic consulting, technical consulting, we've amassed a huge amount of domain expertise. And our clients find that by tapping into our consultants and our expertise, they can actually bring best practices into their own organization. The solutions you see in the middle, and at the bottom again, you see integrated dynamic planning solutions. What is it? If we talk about the business plan or the reserves report, most companies that work with us today have a very linear process. It's one way. It's emailing of spreadsheets, Excel, it comes up to a report and it pops out. And no one will own the numbers because by the time it's come out in the report, they've changed. An integrated dynamic planning process has 2 main components: a centralized database and shared model, coupled with 360-degree feedback. It enables efficiencies and it enables speed. So here's the question. How many reserves packages are out on the market today? There's several. So why would Palantir go and jump into that market? Because we believe through experience and our customers that we are experts at business planning. We are experts at integrated dynamic planning. And there is no good reserve solution available on the market that I've seen or others have seen that take advantage of integrated dynamic planning. And this allows Palantir to bring the entire oil and gas planning cycle to our customers. What are typical problems? Well, we've seen these. It's data, siloed, disparate. The most important challenge? No transparent, auditable, and reproducible workflows. It looks something like this in a company I've worked with. I have 3 business units filled with economists, geologists, and engineers. We're all working on the reserve report. It all has to come together. I'm collecting spreadsheets, I'm collecting emails, I'm sending PowerPoints. This group is sending in version 5. The corporate reserves evaluators just trying to get version 3 out, and this group's still back on version 2. What does that look like in real life? Frustrating and inefficient. I contend that uncertainty is introduced rather than managed. And today I will propose a solution where we can manage the uncertainty instead of introduce it. So I present you with PalantirRESERVES. PalantirRESERVES is a new software tool released by Palantir that sits on top of a product some of you may be familiar with called Dataflow. What Palantir Dataflow does is allow us to access this disparate information that's across the organization. It doesn't have to be sitting in our tool. It can be sitting in whatever your tool is of choice. It can be in a spreadsheet, it can be whatever. The key is, how do I assimilate it? How do I version it? How do I track my revisions? And that's what we'll be taking a look at today. So let's take a closer look. We'll be looking at two products, Palantir Dataflow, not for very long, and then we'll go into the reserve piece. I will let you know I'm in both so I don't confuse you. A big hint will be when I'm in Managed Data, I'm in Dataflow, and when I'm in Reserves, I'm in Reserves. We played with that projector, so my mouse is on the very top of that screen. We're looking at Palantir Dataflow. My company is Arnor. I have an incredible hierarchy in here of information, assets, wells. It's quite large. We're not going to work with that whole hierarchy today because we don't have time. What we will do is take a look at how it's structured. So I've structured by business unit. Within the business unit, I've structured by country. Within the country, I've structured by area. And within area, I'm structured by a number of things. Appraisal project, project development with assets underneath. Producing production with well-by-well analysis. This is where all of my corporate structure is brought together between those three disparate business units I showed you 3 slides ago. I'm going to click on Bright. We're going to focus on these 4 proved producing properties today. When I open that property, the first thing I see is a number of tabs across the top. And we'll review those tabs, but of course on the overview I see the name of the well, the lat long, I see the reserves category. Now, I'm going to warn you, there's 3 characters today. The cameras, the lights, it's all for a Disney movie. So there's 3 characters today, and I'm going to portray them all. And I will tell you when I'm changing from character to character. And right now, I'm a reserve engineer. But I'm going to switch my hat for a minute to be the IT administrator of this system so I can show you where some of these things come from. Because I'm looking at reserves category, and it's proved developed. I go to the very top of my screen, the top of your screen, and click on Administration. Within Administration, there's several notable features. I define my reserve categories. I define my reconciliation reasons. I define my product types. More importantly, I take those definitions, which are standard by different agencies, and I organize them by agency. So when I look at reporting standards, I see that my agencies, SEC, NI, EIA, are all here listed. Double-clicking on SEC, you can see that my product types, which are appropriate for SEC, are all defined within this standard. 2 other items to note while I'm the administrator. What administrator wouldn't brag about their great security? So I'll do that for a moment. Dataflow in reserves comes with full-featured, complete security as you would expect to protect your environment. If I have my entire hierarchy in a single place, that doesn't mean I want everybody to see it. With our administration, I can define users, I can define groups, I can give people access to some areas, any of those nodes, part of those nodes. Additionally, we're not going to talk about it today, but there's a great deal of versioning and revision management built within data flow. So by putting reserves on top of that, we can take advantage of that because that's one of the big issues. What version are we on? What did it look like a month ago? What did it look like a year ago? So data flow brings that to us. Off with the admin hat, back with the reserve manager hat or reserve engineer hat. And now we're looking at our Bright property. I told you there were a number of tabs up here. I wasn't lying. You can see them. How did these tabs get defined? I defined them. This is not a set package that comes up and says you get reserves, drilling, and production. It's up to your organization to configure data flow however you want because it's going to let you see into whichever systems you want. What I have configured here is obviously an overview page. If I look at the Reserves tab, I've got some very interesting data in there. I'm calculating a P10, a P50, a P90. I'm pulling volumetric data down here from my preferred vendor. At the bottom, I'm pulling in a well log and map. Drilling tab, more information, but where is this information coming from? It's coming from my preferred drilling program. Let's look at our production. Maybe this is coming from your SCADA system. At the top, I'm looking at oil, little graph. I can build whichever graphs I like, gas, condensate, etc. Moving across my example, I'm keeping track of my capital. Certainly we watch op costs. And most importantly, economics, output. So I have everything here to be able to do all of my reserve changes, to be able to look at them, to be able to version them. And I would typically do my reserve work throughout the year. And so I've done my economics, I've played with my decline curves, I've looked at my improved recovery factories, and I'm now ready to go do my reserve report. And I'm clicking on the Reserves tab. So I'm now in Palantir Reserves. I've already told you it's organized by agency. There it is. I'm going to select SEC for an American reporting entity. You can see I have 3 reconciliations here, all named KDH. That's me. I have my opening balance for 2014. I'm preparing to do my closing balance, but before I do that, I want to do a trial close. And so I will open up that trial close reconciliation. You will notice that has the same organization as my other hierarchy. Why wouldn't it? I'm coming down to my Leeton producing properties so we can look at the fields of interest. I'm going to click on Leeton, and the first thing I need to do is bring in all of my reserve changes from everywhere. It's all in data flow. I bring that in using my load data feature. I select a mapping template. We're doing SEC. That's pretty obvious. And I'm on my Leeton producing properties. I want to bring all those 4 in. We're just playing with these 4 today. You will notice my mapping template goes from the source, which was managed data, which matches the managed data tab at the top left that I told you was Palantir data flow. And my target is my reserves. Most companies I've worked with, the reserves managers do not want the reserves data stored with the live data. Not always true, my opinion. You could do it however you like it. But what I'm about to do is take all of my reserve changes out of my live data and move them into my reserves database. And it'll only take about 20 minutes. So enjoy. It's already done. For those of you who are astutely paying attention to the left side, the hierarchy of the screen, which used to be all green, I now have yellow exclamation points. It's telling me these are unbalanced branches in my tree, as we would expect. I did my work in Leeton, so it rolls up. We see that Australia is unbalanced, but the Americas still are in balance. So I have a quick visual reference of where I need to go to do my work. There's 3 ways to get to where I need to go to do my work. That's one of them. Another one, which I like because of the workflow and the speed, is simply to apply filters to my hierarchy. So I could just be working with my probable developed. I'm going to select just to work with my unbalanced nodes, and by applying that filter, you notice that the Americas are gone, as is EMEA. A third and really slick way to get down there is one that I've never seen in any other application. How many times does the reserve manager ask the reserve engineer what is contributing to this change at the Leeton area? And we're off on a scramble to find that data. By going to the Leeton and looking at my unbalanced reserves, I can see I have 59 million barrels that are unbalanced. If I look at my Change Details tab, by clicking on this unbalanced, I can quickly drill down to see which properties or entities are providing the most impact. So I can see that it's Bright, Cootamundra, and Cowra. So I'm going to start working on those 4 and to get them to balance, because I am still a reservoir engineer. I'll start with Cowra. I have a deficit of 19.55. I'm going to attribute that to production. And I'm going to make a comment that's going to tag that change for me, and it's going to put my name on it, and it's going to tell me when I changed it. When I filter by approved or unapproved, tasks pending, these tabs let me go from property to property. So I'm going to take out the Cootamundra. I'm going to put that in there. I'd mark that comment as well. And proceed up to Bright. It's just asking me to save. For Bright, I'm going to make the same changes, show you a couple other helpful features. I've got a deficit of 20 million. I'm going to attribute 10 million to production. I'm going to add 5 million from improved recovery. And I'm going to just take the rest and say it was from my economics. While I'm doing that, at the bottom of the screen, you can see my waterfalls are updating. I'll show you some reports with the waterfalls and some of the SEC numbers in it a little later. I can also take a look at those from a column view. What's going up, what's going down, what's my opening balance, what is my ending balance. Quite often, during our reserve reporting, we'd like to see where this closing balance came from. And very similar to what I just showed you with drilling down by which assets are attributing the biggest impact, by clicking on the closing balance, it's coming from Bright. And by opening the source document, I can go exactly back to where I was and be looking at the contributing entity. I am going to save my Bright changes as the engineer. And as you can see, I'm balanced, but I'm not. So I'm going to go back to Cowra. It says 19.5, 19.5. This is probably rounding error. And it is. I'll take that full change. Put it in here for simplicity. Click Save. And I'm balanced. I probably have the same problem on Kudamunda. No, I just didn't do that one right. My tree is now balanced. Time for approvals. I've made my changes. I go to my approvals. I'm going to select all of those. You can see the beginning of my name over here for submittal, and I'm going to submit those to my supervisor. They've already been submitted. When I saved it, I have the option of saying yes or no to submit it or to not submit it. And I already said yes, so these have been submitted. So now I'm just waiting for the reserve manager to approve them. Would anyone like to guess the third character I'll be playing today? Exactly. I am now a reserve manager, and I'm coming in, and I've filtered on things that need approval that are assigned to me, and I've worked down my green hierarchy level, and I see these changes by my reservoir engineer, and I like all of the changes, but I'm not completely impressed by the improved recovery number. So I'm not going to improve that yet, but I will approve these other two. And the one that's not approved, I need to send my reservoir engineer a message that he needs to do or she needs to do more work on this. And to do that, I'm going to create a task. Why wouldn't I just send them an email? Because I'm continuing the chaos. I'm putting all of my comments, I'm putting all of my approvals, I'm putting all of my changes in the same place in my reserve database. I'm versioning it. I'm keeping track of it. I can put a due date. I'm an impatient person. This has to be done tomorrow. I'll send it to my reserve engineer at arnor.com. And I will ask this person to prove the recovery factor for reserves. I now have a green exclamation point in my hierarchy, which is telling me there's tasks to do. And my reservoir engineer can come in tomorrow and filter on the tasks that they have to do, and they can go straight down that entire hierarchy to the pieces they need to focus on and focus on them. Once they're finally approved, I can lock it. The final step in any reserve reporting is the actual reporting. I know it's my favorite. I'm going to create a new reserve report. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. There's lots of reserve reports. There's lots of complicated reserve reports. Palantir Reserves comes with a customizable report writer that will allow you to write any level of sophistication that you may need, as well as sending it to a number of different output types. I'm going to send this one really quick to a PRNX so we can just view it, but I can send it to other places. Here's my SEC reports. I'm not going to report them all. I'm going to click on my hierarchy again. So I'm going to pick Australia because these are country reports. Simply ask it to generate that report. And as I told you, you'd see waterfalls further on. Here's a quick example of a waterfall report for my different product or reservoir production categories, as well as a data report. Not very sophisticated, but you get the idea. And so ends my reserve planning workflow using data flow. So what did we just see? We talked about data flow being the basis for the collection point or assimilation of all the data we use throughout our organizations. We also talked about Palantir, with the entree of reserves, now able to enter into and provide integrated dynamic planning for the entire oil and gas planning cycle process. We've talked about a need for an integrated repository, speed, but most importantly, transparent, auditable, and reproducible. We have a vision at Palantir. Call us crazy. Our vision is, with a tool such as this, we could be doing reserve reports semi-annually or even quarterly, giving us the ability to see if we're on plan. How is our capital performing? We also believe there's an opportunity to bring our auditors in so that the audit becomes more of an internal process with us than an external process of us both going out and getting different sets of data and then coming back and saying, well, we think this needs to be changed or we think this needs to be changed. We think we can shorten that cycle and we think we can reduce the spend with a collaborative internal audit process. This is Palantir Reserves. Thank you.